So the astrology of the week of 5 April 2021 to 11 April 2021, it's a week of good vibes, good conversation, pleasurable relationships with other people, as we have these three sextiles amongst the traditional planets completing this week and perfecting this week. The waning moon in Aquarius will also spend some time bona fide between Venus and Jupiter, and that might give us some time to integrate maybe our thinking and integrate some of the things happening in our lives. With that moon coming in, waning from Aquarius, then moving into Pisces as we prepare for this new moon next week. So it's a comfortable week with easygoing sextiles. Let's get into the chart and let's just take a look at the week and some of the aspects and how they're forming and what's going on. So let me start here. Let's start. Here are these three sextiles I'm speaking about. We've got the Mars-Venus sextile, which takes place on Tuesday about midday here in Central Europe. This is going to be nice energy for your balancing, for reception and action, pleasure and kind of grit and force. Those two things can merge together. I always think about this as a sensual relationship between Mars and Venus, and when they are flowing here with the sextile aspect, which in astrology is one of the better aspects, more supportive, then we might find our relationships are well and independent of who we assign Mars to and who we assign Venus to. I think we all have a Mars and Venus in us, and we all relate with Mars and Venus. And so we're just maybe able to relate here. We're able to say no or say yes, or let people come into our space with their Mars and then maybe push back with ours in a way that's that dance of relating. We've got the Mercury Sextile with Saturn, which I think is very interesting because this is that opening sextile. And remember, Mercury spent that inordinate amount of time retrograde in Aquarius earlier in the year. It was with Saturn that whole time. So there was this kind of mixing and upgrading that Mercury and Saturn did. I think we are figuring out what we'll be doing with our Saturn and Aquarius transits. Maybe that part of our charts was getting turned over a little bit with Mercury going backwards there. But now we're out with this supportive sextile, so that first opening sextile in the cycle. And like I've been talking about, I think this Aries season and this new moon, it's really a time to get into your planning and your movement with how you want this early spring and to go, and then into the summer. So this is a really nice time for activity and auspiciousness surrounding what we're doing. Mercury can always be thought of as maybe planning or thinking. So maybe it's now time to do some research or organize some planning or some thinking around what you'd like to get into, like I said, in the spring and summer. Remember, Jupiter comes into Pisces, and it should be a quite unique summer with that upgrade to Jupiter's dignity, that we haven't had in a long time, few years. And then we finish the week, this is in the same day as the Mercury-Saturn sextile. We have a Venus-Jupiter sextile. So Venus has a lot of action this week. The sextile aspect is of the nature of Venus, and Venus is forming a sextile to both Mars and to Jupiter. Anytime you have both benefic planets making that sextile to each other, we think of these as kind of the most auspicious aspects sometimes in the transiting sky. So look for some good things. Be open for hope, for pleasure, for abundance, for people coming into your life that make you feel good, and that you can give to, and then they give back to you. This sort of exchange of feeling that can come about with the Jupiter and Venus planets, these benefic planets, in this flowing support. So those are the aspects, and that's actually on Saturday. Those two, the Mercury-Saturn sextile and the Venus-Jupiter sextile, both on Saturday. Right about 4 hours apart from each other in the afternoon, evening here in Central Europe. So those are the aspects this week. I'll be breaking down a couple of these. I'm not sure which ones yet. Got a really busy week with some writing deadlines, actually the next couple of weeks. So I'm kind of trying to focus fully on that. But let's come back in here. The next thing I would want to talk about is the moon, what the moon's doing this week. We always have to check in with the moon. This week we have the moon waning, like I talked about earlier, but we do have that bonification that takes place when the moon comes through the last degrees there of Aquarius on Wednesday. And so that could be a lovely time. I think about the waning moon as often being, a time to rest or get ready for the waxing period. So again, it's a planning part of the lunation cycle, as well as having that Mercury trining Saturn, which is also planning, because Saturn is long-term things. Mercury is the thinking mind. That's what planning is. We want to set ourselves up long-term by doing prep work or preparation. So I'm really loving this April 7th transit here, about 8 a.m. where I am in Central Europe. So late in the evening there in the North American continent. And, so then the moon comes into Pisces on Wednesday as well. And this Pisces transit is wonderful because the moon isn't in a hard aspect to Mars and Saturn when it's in Pisces. The moon is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter's not making an aspect, but Jupiter is, I don't think the moon necessarily needs Jupiter's help in this case because it's always good to have Jupiter and Venus's help, and it's always good to have the help of your ruler, but it could be a lot worse for the moon, given that it's not making aspects that are challenging to Saturn. Now it is squaring Mars, so that could be a challenge here as the waning moon comes into Aries for this new moon period, this square to Mars, and it will be conjoining the south node, the south bending, which we associate with the south node. So this might get a little wonky with the Pisces moon, and then we come in and get ready at the end of the week on the 10th. So on Saturday, you'll have that moon's entry into Aries as we prepare for this magnificent new moon in Aries, where all the planets are in a sextile or a trine to each other, kind of culminating this rebirth of action for the early spring, getting us into mid-spring with a nice propelling syzygy. So, this is the lunar mansion that this bonification will take place in Aquarius. I forgot the number here. I think it's the 26th lunar mansion. I'll just check it here. Why not? I've got my phone right here. I can check 26th lunar mansion. But the keywords here: subtle attraction, benevolence, goodwill, love, friendship, favor, relationship. This is actually the lunar mansion, and the bonification takes place just at the end of the previous lunar mansion, but a lot of it happens in this lunar mansion. And it's the same lunar mansion where we have Valentine's every year, where the sun is in this lunar mansion for Valentine's Day. And so there is a sense of goodwill, a sense of connection, like I said, love and friendship. This is from the website lunarium.com. They have a really wonderful summary and write-up of the lunar mansions. You can just type it in to Google, Lunarium, lunar mansions. And actually, it's the first link that came up here. I've got 26 lunar mansion on my phone, and I just type it in. Let's see if this is the one. This is it. Keywords here: love, friendship. Yeah. So this is the one. It's called Al-Farg Al-Awal, the 26th lunar mansion. This is where that opportunity comes on Wednesday. So, as we're waning, sometimes when we rest with others, we can just be together and love each other and relax. It's one of the things people do in relationships the most. What is it? Netflix and chill. I know that has some other connotations, but just relaxation. Let's watch a movie. Let's make some food. Let's comfort each other. It's what we do in relationships, we comfort each other. So, that is it, and I think that the other thing I will consider here, the moon is preparing the ground for Jupiter to enter Pisces. This is, I think, the second to last lunar transit through Pisces before Jupiter arrives. So we're starting to get ready for that Jupiter and Pisces story, and these lunar transits may activate that story for you. So watch the Pisces area of your chart and watch what the moon is doing this week. And yeah, the abundance of a waning moon, I was just speaking about that. There's this rest and this rejuvenation that's quite abundant if we can get into the abundant side of rest. It might not be a time where we're out actively sowing, but or reaping, I guess is to say, you sow the seeds and then you reap the fruits of the seeds. So we're not actively out there, but sometimes the rest period gets us bigger and stronger and healthier. So it's this kind of passive abundance, you might say, or the abundance that comes from not doing things. This is what a waning moon can do and what a waning moon can be like. Okay, wonderful. So that's the weekly astrology. Let's pull a couple of cards, see if we can get some additional themes here related to these astrological transits, and see what else the world, the divine here, divination, right? You're reaching for the divine to come through us. Let's see what the divine wants to communicate. So here's the first card, okay? let me just, always got to stay focused, get focused in for just a second, and as before we pull a card. Okay, the first card is, okay, 15. Let's see what we're gonna pull here. This is the, okay, nice. This is the Page of Clubs, which puts us in Sagittarius, which I'm wondering here about in the first position. You know, the moon just came through Sagittarius last week, but Jupiter rules both Sag and Pisces, and I think that's key to what I was just saying. Maybe I'll point out here, looking at our Jupiter and Sag transit that happened in basically 2019. What was that like for you? How was your 2019? You know, before the world came to an end, and now we're in the new world. What was going on in that final period as the whole collective reality came into that point in March 2020 and then exploded into this new thing we're in? I think we can learn from the old world, let's say, as it, you know, so to speak. We can learn from that. And maybe reaching back into what we were doing during Jupiter's transit through Sagittarius can help us understand what we can retain or things we want to bring into this realm. We might have to work for it, you know, but that is a pocket of our old self, you know, or our old selves. And this is where the South Node is now. And so the South Node brings spiritualism, it brings asceticism, and it brings a really changeability and a strangeness that requires a deep inner work around the Sagittarius parts of our charts. And that's here all of 2021. And so I think when Jupiter enters Pisces, it gets very strong. The South Node's in Sagittarius, also pointing us to that Jupiter part of our chart. And it's a real, you know, knot that I think we can untie. Sometimes there's no easy answers in astrology. That really requires a contemplation. I think Ketu points to that. But just take some time. I'm thinking about I was 2019, I was in China, I was all over the world. I mean, I was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And, you know, I enjoyed myself. I had some really lovely time. So I try to think about positives and try to bring that into the present. But that's what Page of Clubs is you know, calling forth to me. And keep in mind, any page or jack is going to be about stops and starts. And it's going to be about hesitancy and uncertainty. It's the court card of newness. So if you're feeling unsettled and we're kind of tiptoeing now into this Jupiterian summer, just know this is what the card could be pointing to too. Maybe there's a sense of unease or a sense of what's happening. That, you know, we're still in a collective what's happening. We don't really quite know. So, okay, let me get this final card. Let me and see what we can pair this with. All right, we got this is from that Major Arcana, the Tarot of Marseille deck that I love. The Jean Dodal Tarot of Marseille, one of the early Tarot of Marseille. It's a deck. You can find various renditions or facsimiles of that deck online. But yeah, this is going to be the Tower. Okay, wow. Anytime you see the Tower, you know, you might jump a little bit, right? Whoa, the Tower. This is a card associated or corresponding to Mars. And this week we have Mars-Venus. So Mars in Gemini, Venus in Aries, ruled by Mars. That's going to be a rich, I think, aspect to explore and get deeply into. Mars-Venus energy, like I said, I always think about relationship, but maybe there's going to be some shakeup in the relationship. I mean, Venus is ruled by Mars in Aries, and sometimes we need shakeup. You know, the staid, settled quality of things needs to be exposed at times in order for healing to come out and for that kind of vivacity or staying on the edge of life. That's one of the risks in relationships, I think, is that we kind of turn down our potential. And I think it's worth considering, are the relationships we're in keeping us going, engaged, on fire for life and for ourselves and for the world around us? And if not, it doesn't mean kick the relationship, but sometimes things need to shift and alter to keep our individual journeys going, propelled, you know. Ultimately, I think relationships should support our inner work and our sort of inner fire and the goals we have. So maybe that's what this is about. Maybe there'll be some shakeups with that sextile, some auspicious shakeups, easy shakeups, easy going. So, okay, that's the reading. Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching it, and thanks for watching the video. You can find my website, sjanderson144.com, and have a great week ahead. I will speak to you next week with some videos.